Donald Trump continues to do the unthinkable. Every action he takes is clearly in an effort to escalate attacks on peaceful protesters in Los Angeles, and his latest is the most shocking yet because Donald Trump is reportedly deploying hundreds of Marines on LA to continue his assault on that community, and Governor Gavin Newsom is having none of it, fighting back against Trump, fighting back against this order, and going public with some news on the National Guard that is already there that puts Trump to shame. We're going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way in supporting the reporting we are doing right now. Now, before we can get into Gavin Newsom's response, of course, we got to hear this news from CNN right now.
We have breaking news now from the Pentagon. CNN can now report that roughly 500 Marines are being mobilized in response to the protests in Los Angeles.
And this is a significant escalation from President Trump, who had activated National Guard troops over the weekend without Governor Gavin Newsom's consent. In this new move, active duty military members are being deployed as a show of force against U.S. citizens. CNN's Natasha Bertrand is live for us at the Pentagon. Natasha, what are you learning?
Well, Brianna, this is something that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had previewed over the weekend. He said that if necessary, he would deploy the Marines to Los Angeles to help federal agents with handling the protests there. And it appears now that these Marines, according to our sources, they have been mobilized. These 500 Marines, a full Marine battalion based out of 29 Palms, California, which is just outside San Bernardino, about an hour away from Los Angeles. They have been mobilized and they are gearing up to go and help ICE agents as well as other federal officials deal with these protests in Los Angeles. Importantly, they're going to be bolstering as well the National Guard, guardsmen and women who have been activated in Los Angeles by President Trump. But as you said, it is a significant escalation of the president's use of the military as a show of force against these protesters. It's really not clear, you know, the last time Marines were deployed to help essentially with riot control, though it's unclear at this point just what their actual tasking will be. Typically, if they are deployed to these situations, it is expected that they will operate in much the same way that the National Guard does, doing things like perimeter security, maybe some crowd control. But the rules of engagement here, we are told, are still being finalized, and Defense Department lawyers are also looking at the kinds of rules of engagement these Marines will have as they encounter protesters possibly on the streets of Los Angeles. But again, this coming at a very, very tense moment with the governor of California suing the Trump administration over, of course, the deployment of the National Guard by President Trump against his will there in California.
And Natasha,
The initial reporting of this story is incredibly scary, especially with the comments that we saw made earlier today from Governor Newsom in an interview with Brian Tyler Cohen, calling out Pete Hegseth. Of course, he was completely justified and right to do so, but you wonder if this becomes personal for Trump, as it already is and everything is, but Hegseth as well, and what instruction is being given down from the Pentagon because Pete Hegseth is all caught up in his own emotions and maybe, I don't know, put a couple of gin and tonics away. Like, this is all maybe not even something to joke about. It is terrifying what is happening right now, but thankfully we see Newsom fighting back and those on the ground. And I saw an incredibly viral and impactful clip of a protester calling out ICE agents to their face that I think we should take a look at before we see Newsom's response to what is happening right now.
Feel tough with your assault rifles and your sticks? You should be standing here with us.
Stand with us.
You're on the wrong side of history. We know you got a job to do, but you took an oath to the Constitution, not to the fascists in the White House. Think about what you're doing now. Think about what this means. Coming into our community. Peaceful community. People working their jobs. They send in men in military fatigues. Weapons of war into our communities. And you stand here and you allow it. I am sick and tired of it. You should be sick and tired of it. You think any of these people in the White House sending you these commands give a fuck about you? Not one of them do. They laugh at you. Our president laughs at you. He calls you fools. He said the people who died overseas in the military were chumps.
This is exactly the type of energy that we need, and that is why I'm so glad that we have seen it on the ground. And of course, we are seeing it from Governor Gavin Newsom, whose office responded to this report that Donald Trump is deploying the Marines. They had a different response than I would have expected, and then we will check out what Newsom is saying right now. The governor's press office wrote, "From our understanding, this is moving Marines from one base to another. At this time, the information we have is that Marines are not being deployed. This is a difference between that and being mobilized. The level of escalation, though, is completely unwarranted, uncalled for, and unprecedented, mobilizing the best-in-class branch of the U.S. military against its own citizens." Newsom, responding to J.D. Vance's attack, wrote, "Do your job. We didn't have a problem until Trump got involved. Rescind the order, return control to California." Also critiquing Trump and calling out the horrible condition that the National Guardsmen and women are in, we see Gavin Newsom saying, "You sent your troops here without fuel, food, or water, or a place to sleep. Here they are, being forced to sleep on the floor, piled on top of one another. If anyone is treating our troops disrespectfully, it is you, Donald Trump." So there is a lot to unpack there in Newsom's response. First, I want to start with what his press office said. That is the latest news that we have. Of course, those are conflicting reports. But if it isn't true that Donald Trump has officially deployed these Marines yet, but instead is trying to act like it in a fake, phony show of strength, that is just so embarrassing. Of course, this situation is very scary, and the current reporting that we have, although conflicting with Newsom's press office, is that the Marines are being deployed right now. But Donald Trump, obviously, either way, is just trying to act tough and escalate, as Governor Gavin Newsom said. And it is the reason that we have to point out that this is all a part of Donald Trump's plan to distract from his failing and disgusting budget bill. And we saw more of that point being made from friend of the show, Tim Miller on MSNBC, who had two really great points I want to take a look at right here.
I think he thinks he benefits for sure. There was a Wall Street Journal editorial this morning saying essentially that, what do you expect beside protests if you're going to send in people, to shake down Home Depot clerks and dishwashers at restaurants? Like, eventually people are going to get upset about that and push back, and there are going to be protests that could get out of control. And I think that was a correct insight from the Journal, but I think they missed the notion that that's what the administration wants, I think, is for things to get out of control. They see it as a political benefit. Trump wanted, going back to his first term, to be able to be more aggressive about calling in the National Guard and calling in military to do domestic crackdowns on protesters. At that time, there were more people in the White House that were pushing back on him than there are now. And so I do think it's that situation. And I think you see this tension in the statement that was just read from the White House, about how they are trying to frame this as, oh, we're going after the worst of the worst. We are going after murderers and sex offenders, and Gavin Newsom wants to defend them, when in reality what they're doing is going after immigrants and then using it as a pretense to go after the protesters.
Yeah.
You have to notice that the ICE raids are not happening at Donald Trump's golf courses or in deep red parts of the country, right? Like, these raids are happening in a lot of blue cities. It's been happening for a while in Chicago and other places, and LA is the place where it has kind of exploded onto the streets here. And I just think that, all you have to do is read a social media feed, and you played some of those bleats from earlier. Like, this is a person who seems very excited to be able to send in the troops, right? It is not somebody that is, trying to be measured and wait to see how things play out. And if things really do get out of hand in LA, maybe, you have to call in the Guard. Like, that's not what's happening. And they called in the Guard before there were any, before they needed to. And so, I think that shows just how much they want this fight in the White House.
Yeah,
Tim is spot on, per usual. Donald Trump is trying to create a distraction, and he's only doing so in the states and in the blue cities that he has political and personal beef with. That is what this is all about. We have a president in cognitive decline who is carrying out an assault based on his own anger on the rest of the country. That is insanity, and it is why we need leaders like Gavin Newsom right now standing up to that, and we saw more from Newsom right here.
But that's not what Trump is after. He's not for peacemaking.
He's here for war. He wants a civil war on the streets of America, not just here. He's testing the boundaries by nationalizing the federal guard. Heck, his own great Kristi Noem was just a year ago sitting there with newsmaker Sean Hannity saying it's outrageous that Biden is considering nationalizing the guard in my great state. Kristi Noem, the same Kristi Noem, saying, what about state sovereignties and state rights? And where the hell is Hannity now? Where the hell is Kristi Noem? They're out there just singing the siren songs of chaos, trying to sow chaos and putting our democracy at risk. These are acts of authoritarians, period, full stop.
So what you're saying and what he's saying, very heated rhetoric. How do we cool this down? How do we get things to calm down? How do we get the streets at this point to be safe?
Donald Trump needs to rescind his order, period. And then we need to go back to a process where we peacefully protest, where law enforcement peacefully organizes safe parameters of engagement, or at least parameters of engagement that keep people safe, that federal authorities have the right to enforce federal laws, but in a way that can be at least coordinated so that it's not chaotic, and that keeps families together and goes after the criminals, not innocent people that are just trying to live their damn lives and just trying to get their kids educated.
What do you say to critics who say you may have poked the bear by threatening to withhold California's tax money?
This
and
was
going
after
at
he
it?
said he was going for a full-scale attack on the university system and cutting NSF funding and cutting NIH funding, poking the bear. Are you kidding? Meaning standing up for principles, standing up for honor and decency, standing up for the rule of law, poking the bear? Come on.
And lastly, there's a lot of people who are scared right now, especially a lot of people who are Latino who are here legally, who are worried they may be taken away. That's a huge percentage of California's population.
Well, I mean, it goes to 40% of the population.
What do you say?
We're a majority minority state. 27% of the state's foreign-born. All these mixed status families.
What's your message to those people today?
They matter and we care. And that's why we're being so aggressive right now, pushing back against these authoritarian tendencies of Donald Trump. That's why we're standing tall with 22 lawsuits. That's why we did a special session. And you guys, many of you called me out as, it's too extreme. Shouldn't you be working with Donald Trump during his transition when I called that special session?
This story is still developing, and I will continue to cover all of the updates. I so appreciate the support y'all have given this channel as we cover what is one of the scariest events so far of the Trump presidency, but believe that independent media now more than ever is so important in making sure the truth gets out. That is why we are going to keep doing this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop the blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.